Hey voters, now New York State has long been considered to have one of the shystiest governments in all the 50 states. But is that true? Spoiler, yes. But let's talk about why. Let's say you're a contractor that really wants to get in on some of these government business contracts that they have out to maybe build on an addition to the library or create a new landscaping section of a public park. However, once you submit your bid, you realize that all the government contracts seem to go to the same businesses over and over again. Or let's say you're a personal injury lawyer who wants to represent people who have been impacted by mesothelioma. But every individual in New York State seems to be going to one small law firm. What gives? In this two-part series, if two can be a series, I'm going to go through some of the basics of the New York State Senate, the Assembly, some tawdry scandals, and what our lawmakers have done to make things better since these scandals, and what they also have failed to do. It's going to be a lot like the show Scandal, so get your popcorn. However, it's as if the casting could only be done in the clearance section of a Men's Warehouse. Just like at the federal level, there are three branches of government in each state. There's the executive branch, which is the governor's office, the legislative branch, which is composed of the Senate and the Assembly, and then the judicial branch, which is the courts. The only exception to this rule is the state of New Jersey, which is actually just governed by cats and heat. So I'm going to highlight four major issues with the state legislature. Member items, no cap on outside income, 3 men in a room, way less sexy than it sounds, we'll get to it, and also unchecked power of the leadership in these houses. The New York State Senate is the upper house. The upper house has 63 members, which represent 63 districts. Currently, 40 of those members are Democratic, 21 are Republican, and 2 seats are vacant. There are 3 leadership positions of the New York State Senate. Technically, the president of the Senate is the lieutenant governor. However, they're only able to vote in the situation of a tie. The real position of power is the temporary president, who often is also what is like the majority leader. So whatever party holds most of the seats in the state Senate is going to have one representative who has the most power. 4 of the last 5 temporary presidents have been convicted of wrongdoing. Joseph Bruno, for example, was convicted of federal corruption charges for allegedly receiving $3.2 million in consultation fees to help people get the types of government contracts and access to individuals that they desired within state government. Dean Skelos levied his power to make sure that contractors hired his son and paid him outrageous sums of money to do nothing and then not fire him when he did nothing in order to be able to be considered for valuable government contracts. Really what he should have done was contact VeggieTales, because really he was perfect. Is that not a leak with eyes and ears when you see one? Democratic State Senator Malcolm Smith tried to bribe his way onto the New York City mayoral ticket as a Republican candidate, also strange. And then also one of his staffers finally brought a successful suit against him and got a paternity test to prove that he was the father of her child and that he needed to pay her child support. Come on, guys, do better. Pedro Espada Jr. was convicted for federal corruption charges when he stole money from federally funded hospital clinics. I kind of wish that part of his sentencing was just that he had to rely on alternative medicine for the rest of his life for whatever ails him. It's like, sorry, you stole money from our hospital system. We can only prescribe you echinacea. Let's also not forget that during this time, Eliot Spitzer was elected governor of the state of New York, and he ran on a ticket of ethics reform. Unfortunately, he had to resign in disgrace because he had paid over $80,000 to sex workers, who, let's just be real, earned every cent. Personally, for me, sex work is work, and it should be legal. However, if you're governor of a state and you seem to enjoy this activity so much, why don't you introduce some legislation then that will prevent poor women, trans women, and men from getting arrested in the streets for this same activity that you seem to enjoy so much? So that brings us to the New York State Assembly. In 2015, Sheldon Silver was arrested for federal corruption charges, and he had served as the Speaker of the Assembly for nearly 30 years. Sheldon Silver was accused of taking nearly $4 million in kickbacks from different law firms where he was technically a staff member, but was not litigating any trials. So how did this get so out of hand? Reason number 1, men. Reason number 2, the leadership positions in the Senate and the House received way too much power. And as we know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The Assembly Speaker and temporary president essentially got to decide what legislation went to the floors of the House and Senate. And before any discussion was even had, the senators all knew how that they were supposed to vote on this legislation. If they voted against the way that the leadership wanted them to vote, well, they could kiss any projects that they wanted funding for in their own district goodbye. So, for example, if Sheldon Silver wanted you to vote yes on a certain piece of legislation, then you voted yes. Because when you voted yes, you could get $1 million finally to update the playground equipment inside of your own district. Because kids with tetanus get lockjaw and then they're terrifying. This money that went to pet projects was called member items. Now, member items were a carrot for honest legislators who really are coming to make their district a better place to be and are coming to advocate for their people. However, member items could also be abused. In the case of Brian McLaughlin from Queens, he just skimmed $95,000 off of money that was supposed to go towards Little League teams in his district. I'm assuming he and his wife had like a baseball kink, because what do you do with $95,000 worth of Little League uniforms? In addition to the power that these two positions held over member items and who got what money, the state budget was essentially determined by them and the governor, a policy known as 3 men in a room. Pipe down, homosexuals, it's not that exciting. It's actually very disturbing. The state budget represents billions of dollars, so rather than having open discussions with some of the other state legislators about their ideas or what their district's needs were, essentially 3 men in a room decided it, brought the budget back to the legislators who were expected to rubber stamp it. If they didn't rubber stamp the budget, then again, no playground equipment. All of this has happened within the last 30 years. So what have our state legislators done to make things better? What has our governor done to make things better? Governor Cuomo ran on a ticket of ethics reform as well. I'll get to this in the next video about what has changed and what hasn't changed in regards to our state legislators and executive office to make New York a little bit more ethical place to govern. Hey friends, thanks so much for watching. I'm going to put a link in the description down below for a podcast called American Scandal, which is where I got a lot of my information from for this video. And also, again, continued information about how to vote early if you want to, how to order an absentee ballot, and then hopefully soon I'll put a little card for video number 2 coming out. Thanks!